Welcome to the Love Story with Lisa channel. Today, we're bringing you a brand new story. Lady of the House. When my father married me off to Master Tuan, I had just turned 20, and he was 50. Everyone said it was a fortuitous match. The Tuan family was wealthy. Even as a secondary wife, one would still enjoy status and honor. On the wedding hall that day, Master Tuan's body stooped with age. When his gnarled hand closed over mine, I lowered my eyes slightly, smiled faintly, and felt an icy chill settle deep in my heart. He was 30 years my senior, old enough to be my grandfather. But so what? They thought throwing an old man at me would bind my life. Little did they know, it suited me perfectly. A young husband might cling and cause trouble, but the elderly, he would die soon enough. After receiving the bride price from the Tuan household, my father casually announced it at dinner. "Daughter, I've arranged a very good marriage for you." He mimicked the pose of wealthy dignitaries, stroking a few sparse strands of gray on his chin, face shiny and smiling with smug satisfaction. The Tuans were major merchants in Lichao, silk shops, rice stores, even pharmacies. Out of 10 households, 6 bore the Tuan name. Marrying there as the lady of the house would be a life of fortune. I set down my chopsticks and asked deliberately, "Father, which son of the Tuan family is this?" His smile froze, he awkwardly stroked his chin. The family servants whispered, "Ah, that inexperienced young man? Father has chosen the middle-aged Master Tuan for you." "Oh, 50 is considered middle-aged?" I chuckled lightly. Father just celebrated 40 not long ago, complaining that he's already halfway through life, old and weak. Next to me, Diana Truong slammed her chopsticks down. "Sister, why say such things? Master Tuan only has your well-being in mind. He is the head of the Tuan family. Marrying there as lady of the house is far better than taking a boy who will have you bowing to his whims." I looked up at Diana Truong calmly. "If you're that anxious, why not marry him yourself? I hear Master Tuan dotes on Xiang Tien Nak. 2 years ago he even took in a girl 2 years younger than Di Nuong." Rude. My father suddenly banged the table and shouted, "If not for your Botsi being compatible with Master Tuan's, do you think he'd even notice a young girl like you?" "Botsi compatible?" I laughed in disbelief. Wasn't that just a fortune my father arranged to climb social heights? Father's face went pale with anger. Marriages were decided by parents, it was not my place to argue. Diana Truong immediately chimed in, "Master, do not harm your health over this. From my perspective, Sister Ro is far too proud, always showing her face in public these past years, leaving little of a proper noble lady's demeanor." I clenched the edge of my robe, maintaining a cold smile. At 5, I accompanied my father through the streets selling incense. At 12, I ran the shop myself. At 16, I traveled alone to the north for trade. And now, my father in his silk robes considered me disgraceful. My gaze fell on the empty space beside Diana Truong. My father hastily trying to push me out of the house. Who was that spot really for? It should have been her precious son, but now who knew which courtesan house he was lost in? Diana Truong's face changed. "Lu Yen knew, do not be ungrateful. The Lu family's estate will eventually go to Ha I Kim. Are you trying to ruin it?" I cut her off coldly. "Last year, who earned 6/10 of the shop's profits? Last month, whose son was beaten and chased for debt at the gambling hall?" Father's face darkened like cold steel. You've grown more insolent. I've tolerated you for too long, letting you forget your duties as a daughter. You needn't touch the shop anymore. As for the marriage to the Twans, you will go, whether you like it or not. I rose and turned to look at the house I had protected with all my heart. The grand room, carved pearwood, hibiscus trees meticulously detailed, it had been my devotion for years. And now my father casually handed it over to the foolish Ha-I Kim. I asked one last time, "Father, do you remember the year you had a fever that wouldn't break? Who knelt in the snow begging the head apothecary for medicine debts?" Father turned his face away, a fleeting look of guilt passing. Diana Truan's voice pierced my ears. "Oh, now playing the dutiful daughter, are we? If you were truly filial, you would step into the bridal sedan willingly." I didn't look back, silently stepping out of the wedding hall. While the clatter of falling bowls and chopsticks echoed behind me, the wedding was set for 3 months later. Father stripped me of management of the shop, even my usual male attire was ordered collected. In the courtyard, several burly women threw my clothes into the fire. I watched each piece consumed by flame, curling like the years I had sacrificed for the Liu family's brand, piece by piece turning to ash. From now on, this young lady would learn to be the lady of the house. I turned and saw an elderly lady with silver-streaked hair standing under the corridor. She wore simple clothes, not a single piece of jewelry on her, yet her presence commanded respect. The old servant, Tristan Ma, had been ordered by Master Tuan to take charge of teaching me proper conduct. Tristan Ma had once been an elder in the imperial court, released now but already carrying an air of stern authority even without raising her voice. On the first day of learning to stand properly, she placed 3 books atop my head. "Do you know why you must balance these on your head?" she asked. "To maintain a poised demeanor," I replied. "Wrong." She suddenly removed 1 book. The weight shifted, and I scrambled to keep my balance. "It is so you understand that a woman, if she wishes to establish herself permanently, must bear far more weight than a man." Occasionally, Father would come by and catch me practicing. Hearing him snicker from the corridor, I realized that even when obedient, I was not offensive to the eye. Tristan Ma suddenly raised her voice. "Lower your back another third, remember to bow deeply. The stronger the lift when you rise, the more power you gain." A month passed. The calluses on my fingertips gradually wore down. Previously, for convenience, I had always used a simple wooden hairpin, but now I had to learn to coil my hair in the intricate 1G style. In the bronze mirror, the string of pearls on my hair gleamed brightly. In an instant, my reflection merged with the young girl I had once been, holding an umbrella in the rain, struggling to protect my cart. Back then, I was not yet Lu Yen Nu, not even having a single clean handkerchief, and now I sat in a fragrance-filled chamber, gently dabbing at my corners of my eyes with a scented silk handkerchief. I laughed bitterly, but Tristan Ma's voice came from behind the mirror. "For a poor girl, learning proper conduct is a luxury. For a rich girl, not knowing propriety is a sin. You have tasted hardship before, so you should understand how precious knowledge now is." With my hair coiled, a touch of osmanthus oil applied, and pearl pins shining on my head, Tristan Ma performed a bow. "You have learned quite a bit. This old servant may take her leave. I know your learning is still rough, compared to the daughters of wealthy noble families raised in silks, you still fall short." I quietly observed her expression. The stern face I had always known softened slightly, and the corners of her eyes hinted at a smile. No matter how rigid the training, one was still only a wooden beauty, but my heart stirred, realizing she was guiding me. Her meaning was clear: a bright sword may be easily broken, but learning to weave brocade like a peacock, with its hidden claws beneath the feathers, is true mastery, unseen yet powerful. The next day, I dressed properly, deliberately choosing the outfit and hairpin Tristan Ma had picked. In the bronze mirror, my face resembled a peach blossom, gentle, with a hint of liveliness. As I entered the main hall, I advanced gracefully to perform my bow. Daughter greets father. Father assessed me from head to toe, a satisfied curl at the corner of his lips. Good. This is the true pearl of the Liu family. I bowed my head, smiling. Foolish daughter now understands father's heart. To establish oneself. A woman must be like water, square where it meets square, round where it meets round. Good, very good, father said, his eyes moist. Touched. Father, I interrupted, I have grown up now, you should call me Runi. Since childhood, I was called On. You once said, for a poor girl, she must live like a boy, only with ambition can she survive. Later, in the prosperous Liu household, the blue tiles were replaced with glazed ones. Father's demeanor had changed. He did not allow me to call him dad, but instructed me to address him as father in the merchant patriarch style. He said the name On was too brittle, too easy to break, and so he invited a scholar to give me a new name. The scholar said the two characters Yen knew were elegant, like a wisp of smoke on a spring day, like willow blossoms drifting in the wind, petals with nowhere to rest. Father praised it endlessly, unaware that smoke and willow blossoms were inherently fleeting, scattered by a mere gust of wind. Meanwhile, Diana Truong's son was named Ha-I Kim by father himself. Ha-I Kim had, from the moment he was born, held the mountain of gold and wealth of the Liu family in his hands. Diana Truong teased beside me, Master has truly found a capable tutor. In less than a month, the wild bird has become a phoenix. I turned to her, gaze soft as water, no trace of my former sharpness. She joked, I merely thought that once I stood firm in the Tuan household, it would be easier to support my younger brothers. I heard that father planned to elevate Diana Truong to secondary wife. Father nodded. Yes, Van Ni bore a son for the Lius and served me for many years. She deserves a status, and I consent. That is indeed proper. I shifted my tone slightly. But the Tuan household is cautious about the phrase, climbing ranks. If your daughter marries first, your maternal house will immediately elevate her to primary wife. Outsiders might think the Liu family is targeting the Tuan family estate. Father's expression immediately changed. Diana Truong stomped impatiently. Master, don't listen to this vile girl. She clearly cannot bear the idea of letting me be the primary wife. Shut your mouth. Father fell silent for a moment, then softened his tone toward me. Runi is prudent, the elevation to secondary wife can be postponed for now. Diana Truong turned green with anger, pouting and adding fuel to the fire, but still could not move father in the slightest. I will not return to my room, I will go to the inner chambers. As I pushed the door open, Tristan Ma was tidying her belongings. I stepped forward. Gently holding her hand, Ma, are you leaving already? She looked up at me, a flicker of surprise in her eyes. Miss has finished learning, this old servant may step back. I asked if she had any family remaining here. She paused, then smiled faintly, a trace of bitterness in it. 30 years in the inner court, the ties of fate ended long ago. Now, I am just a drifting leaf, following the current wherever it leads. Hearing her speak thus, I lifted the teacup from the table and knelt solemnly before her. If Mama does not mind, let me be your daughter. I will serve you faithfully for the rest of my life, tending incense without end. Tristan Ma looked at me and smiled softly, accepting the tea and drinking it all. Since childhood, I had traveled with father through countless hardships, accustomed to handling matters myself. Even the core staff of the shop could not be easily brought along. Meeting Tristan Ma was a blessing. God had granted me an extra hand of support. Father was overjoyed when he learned of this. In his eyes, it merely proved that I had turned over a new leaf. Tristan Ma had once served in the court. If she accompanied me as my dowry guardian, it would make the Liu household proud indeed. In recent days, I had behaved like a proper young lady, so much so that father nearly forgot the daughter who once slammed the table and argued with him. Half a month remained until the wedding. I took the initiative to request a trip to the shop. Seeing his hesitation, I added, "Father, rest assured, I will conceal my face carefully. All the senior clerks are under my guidance. Before I go, I wish to give them some instructions, lest they slack off." I saw a glimmer of calculation in his eyes. Surely he intended for me to go and reassure the old staff, so they would continue to serve the Liu family with all their effort. Indeed, he stroked his sparse beard and nodded. "Very well. Go early and return early." Standing before the incense shop, I gazed quietly at the sign, "Liu's Fragrance Shop," lost in thought. 5 years ago, I had stood here, on tiptoe, helping father hang that very sign. He had patted my head and said with a smile, "Little girl, this is now our place of refuge, the foundation for our future." Yet now, that foundation had grown 100-fold, and the one who had hung the sign was about to be expelled from the premises. Truly ironic. Burning bridges could even apply to father and daughter, it seemed. On the drying yard, Zachary Zhao wore a rough blue linen shirt, bent over, sorting incense. I called softly, "Uncle Zhao." He turned, briefly startled to see my attire. I lifted the curtain from my hat, his cloudy eyes brightened instantly. "Young miss just called?" he whispered, eyes alert. "Why are you here?" "I came to visit Uncle." I noted the roughness of his clothes. "Uncle Zhao, why wear such workman's attire?" He smiled wryly. "Last month, Master suddenly summoned me and ordered me to hand over the senior clerk post to Truong Zidong. From now on, all matters follow his orders." The next day, he demoted me to menial tasks in the drying yard. Zidong, Truong Di Nuong's 30-year-old grandson, still aimless, always scheming petty tricks. How had he become the senior clerk? One had to wonder, was Diana Truong whispering in his ear, or was father determined to remove a loyal aide from my side? Zachary Zhao pulled a small ledger from his chest. I examined it, records of all entries and exits over the past month. The new clerk had rerouted supplies, claiming a 30% cost saving, but in truth, the imported agarwood was only half as good as last year's. Reading his notes, a bitter turmoil rose in me. "Father, you are truly growing old. The chief clerk must be able to manage goods, distribute funds, and oversee everything. How could a petty troublemaker like Truong Zidong bear such responsibility?" I drew a prepared silver note from my sleeve and pressed it into his hand. "Uncle Zhao, you've surely heard I am about to marry into the Tuan household. That family is powerful and prosperous. Could you endure a little longer, for my sake?" The old man looked ashamed, hesitant to accept such generosity. I pressed my hand over his, preventing refusal. Without Uncle Zhao guarding the incense shop for all these years, how could the Lu family have reached today? He fully deserved this reward. Zachary Zhao had his own small incense shop, but alone he could barely withstand the business world. Later, I had purchased it under my direction and appointed him senior clerk. He knew the trade and was loyal, a capable right hand I could never afford to lose. Seeing him accept this silver note, I drew from my sleeve 5 100-tael notes and 20 50-tael notes, distributing them to the junior brothers below. They had surely faced hardships these past days. This was my small token of comfort. Zachary Zhao's voice trembled. Young miss, rest assured. If anything happens, I will report to you immediately. That Truong Zidong, he couldn't even control the heat while drying incense, yet he thought he could be of any use? In chaotic times, one truly sees human hearts. Those who follow me, and whom I myself go to reassure, will naturally be more reliable. Unfortunately, time was tight and father was observing closely, so I could only entrust things to Chief Clerk Zhao. Leaving the incense shop, I went straight to the bamboo shop. As expected, their chief clerk had also been replaced. Same old trick, demotion to menial labor first, wait until they break, then remove them completely. The new chief clerk, Ti Kwang, was someone I had personally trained. Just over 30, strong and capable. He didn't mind the menial work, only the injustice of it. And then there was Henry Lu, a reckless, gambling, wine-drinking youth who understood nothing of business, yet he was promoted to chief clerk. Henry Lu was exactly like Truong Zidong. Those skilled at flattery were elevated. I could already foresee that within 3 years, the entire business would face a crisis. I repeated my old method, pressing 2,000 taels into Ti Kwang's hand. He refused firmly. Young miss, you have helped me too much. How can I accept your money? Only your word is enough. Even if I died, I wouldn't betray it. I insisted. The younger brothers are now of school age. Take it, whatever hardships come, don't let them suffer. Ti Kwang looked at me, his sun-darkened face softening with pain. Young miss, you are so good, yet because you were born a girl, those beasts oppress you. Heaven truly has no eyes. I quickly stopped him, then handed him some small silver for him to distribute among the brothers in the bamboo shop. Today's trip was, for now, a settling of affairs for those who had once followed me into danger, but my own purse was nearly empty. The wedding day approached. Diana Truong was still blocking, causing father to hold back much of the dowry. I said only one thing: if you don't relinquish, how can you catch a wolf? That was enough for father to willingly add a portion to my dowry. To cling to power, one must invest. It was time for me to step into the Tuan household with empty hands. The one losing face would not be me, but Master Lu himself. Con Chao and Lat Chao were only 3 days' ride apart. Normally, a bride should be carried to the bridal sedan by her brothers, but Diana Truong, fearing her precious son would tire, stubbornly objected. Fine by me, I didn't want it anyway. Standing before the Lu Manor gate, I glanced back at the place I had grown up, then turned to let the veil fall over me. As I stepped down the threshold, I caught the familiar scent of agarwood mixed with bamboo leaves. Miss Lu, my apologies for the rudeness. Through the slit in my veil, a slender hand reached out, the right thumb marked with a small mole the size of a sesame seed. My entire body trembled. It was Ethan Tuan. The Tuan family would surely send someone from a collateral branch to fetch the bride, yet here was the young master in person. Master Ethan has come on father's behalf, miss, Please place your hand and step carefully." His voice was polite and gentle, yet carried a distance, as if we had never met. I softly replied, "Thank you, young master," placing my hand on his. I could clearly feel the skin beneath my fingertips tighten. At the rest stop at the dye house, I removed my face covering. Ethan Tuan pretended to observe casually, yet I caught his gaze. I smiled gently. "Young master, do you have a question?" He turned abruptly, stiffly. Just looking at me reminded him of someone from the past. I laughed lightly, voice calm. "Ah, that old acquaintance of mine liked dressing in men's clothes, speaking loudly, temper quick, and had a penchant for the eccentric folks at the dock, beneath the wedding veil." My hand clenched the edge of my gown. In my memory, a little girl in tattered clothes had stood on tiptoe, bravely waving. 2 drunken thugs tried to steal her incense bundles, intending mischief. I had been 14 then, and suddenly devised a plan, loudly calling to the passing youth in silk, "Brother, I'm here." My heart nearly leaped into my throat. The youth paused, then approached. Under the puzzled eyes of the 2 drunkards, he closed his fan, lightly tapping my shoulder. "This little girl sneaks out to play again," he said, laughing wryly. "Let's go home." The 2 men silently carried my load away. I linked arms with him and walked a distance, only letting go at a fork in the road. "Thank you, young master, for your help," I said, still trembling from fear. He handed me a handkerchief. "Near the 3rd pier on the east side of the dock, there's a tea shop. Its chief clerk is an old acquaintance of mine." He placed a coin in my hand. "Give this to him, he will serve you a cool bowl of tea." The coin carried warmth. I kept it threaded on a string around my neck ever since. That was the first time I met Ethan Tuan, a rather interesting young lady, he must have thought. I spoke softly. Ethan Tuan suddenly turned, eyes burning. He liked eating osmanthus pastries at the bustling street, but found them too sweet. If eaten too often, they hurt the teeth. He also liked tucking flower petals into his notebooks, claiming it improved the mood when reviewing records. "Young Master Ethan," I interrupted. "It's no longer early in the day." Ethan Tuan fell immediately silent, his hand clenched so tightly it went white. We faced each other in quiet, the only sound the rustling whined through the old locust tree outside the inn. Once, long ago, I had run amok with him, reckless and carefree. In the bitter winter at the foot of Mount Chongling, he brewed wine for me. Snowflakes clinging to the tail of his brows. In summer at Inquan Temple, when I tied red cords and whispered my wishes, he quietly added money for incense and oil. The person was near, yet the heart had changed, and the world around us had shifted. The little girl who had once carried incense with golden hair now wore the phoenix red veil and had to marry a man in his 50s. The young master in silk who had taught me the ways of trade now had to call me mother. The distance between us was not 3 steps, it was a lifetime. On the wedding day, the main hall buzzed with noise and celebration. Through the layers of the veil, I could just make out the bowed figure of Master Tuan. Cheers erupted as if this were a bond ordained by heaven. I was guided by the crowd into the bridal chamber. Red candles glowed fiercely, and I sat upright on the wedding bed. From beneath the veil, I could see only a pair of silk shoes staggering forward, reeking faintly of alcohol. The ceremonial hand lifted the veil, revealing a face lined with wrinkles. His murky eyes sunken in deep sockets, the smell of stale wine mixing with decay, stared directly at me. "I've kept the little bride waiting long enough," he croaked, I lifted my head slightly, a soft smile hiding my modesty and shyness. "My husband," I corrected gently, "not master." Those words seemed to please Master Tuan greatly. The ceremonial attendant promptly offered a cup of wine. One sip warmed my stomach, flushing my face under the candlelight. I was radiant as a hibiscus, my eyes like peach blossoms. Master Tuan waved his hand, and the crowd filed out. His bony, twig-like hand reached for the phoenix hairpin in my hair. Each piece of jewelry was removed and tossed aside. As he unbuttoned my gown, he joked, voice hoarse, "I hear this little bride is skilled in trade. Well then, I'll take the initiative." I grasped his hand as he carefully removed each layer of my wedding dress, realizing his knowledge was shallow. Nothing compared to my husband's intellect. His throat made eager, guttural sounds. Excellent, excellent. What Master Tuan cherished most was the life force in her body. I bit my lip and smiled faintly, letting him press me beneath the quilt. When our skin met, I smelled the musty scent on him, a faint trace of incense unable to mask his waning breath. That night, I surrendered to a man old enough to be my ancestor, but so what? Even a fierce tiger, once its teeth fall, is merely a sickly cat. The young husband would be hard to coax, the old man would soon die. I used my youthful body to ensnare Julien Tuan within the bridal chamber. For 5 consecutive days, he stayed with me at the marital quarters. Though he lacked the strength. Aside from the wedding night, the following days were spent reminiscing. I continued to feign affection, attending to him with gentle care. Indeed, gold, silver, and jewels flowed like water. I spared nothing. My makeup was meticulous, pearl pins sparkling in my hair. Was this not what the old man desired most? The more dazzling I appeared, the less he could part from me. I never forgot my own intentions. As the mistress, I had to hold power. Julien Tuan had few children. The legitimate eldest son, Ethan Tuan, was from the first wife. The younger son, Leon Tuan, was born to Lady Lydia Lu. Both were conceived through special means. Lydia gained favor, and after the first wife passed, she gradually took control of the household. I heard that the younger son had been secretly vying for influence against Ethan Tuan. On the second day of the wedding, the concubines should have paid respects to the mistress. Yet by late morning, not even a chambermaid appeared. While I strolled through the garden, April Han encountered Lydia Lu. Lydia, arm draped around her maid, raised her chin and swept past, huffing coldly before leaving. Now, Julien Tuan only regards me as a plaything to pass time, not mentioning anything else. I can happily feign ignorance, drinking and singing with him all day. Until a rumor unexpectedly spread through the streets, that in the Tuan household, the old tree bore flowers, yet the husband and wife did not acknowledge it, and the father and son knew nothing. In just 3 short days, the news had reached all of Lat Chao. Once Julien Tuan heard it, he immediately left the trade hall to return home. Seeing him storm in angrily, I feigned surprise. "Husband, what is the matter?" He slammed the table, summoning the steward. Right in front of me. He ordered that by tomorrow morning, the concubines must come to pay respects at all costs. I raised my teacup and gently brushed his chest. The older sisters are elderly and frail. It's fine if they don't come to pay respects. I pouted coquettishly. I only wish to be near my husband, not face the concubines or other wives, avoiding any pretense of jealousy. Julien Tuan seemed to enjoy it thoroughly. My little mischief, now as the household's mistress, these formalities were unavoidable. I lifted a finger painted red, lightly pressing it against his chest. Mistress of the house? I only wished for my husband by my side, if I died, would die content. He laughed heartily, pulling me close. Foolish little girl, everyone in this household was jockeying for control of the inner court, yet she alone remained utterly unconcerned. I leaned against his shoulder and said calmly, as long as I have my husband, what need have I for such empty titles? If I don't, it doesn't matter. Right now, his two sons are fighting over the business. Julie-Antoine had grown old. What he loved most was someone pure, uninterested in power. My behavior fit him perfectly. That night, Tristan Ma helped me remove the hairpins. My husband's move was clever. He tested whether the Tuan household intended to arrange a marriage with a branch family while asserting his authority himself. Julie-Antoine was a crafty old fox, normally unconcerned with appearances, yet suddenly taking a stand to support me could only hide some hidden agenda. In a noble household, with so many servants, every gesture was observed. I deliberately let the rumor spread, just to test. Was it true that Ethan Tuan would soon marry the heiress of that branch family? The officials and gentry valued reputation. If word got out that the Tuan household favored a concubine over proper marital arrangements, it might never succeed. The next day, when meeting the senior concubines, which outfits should I wear? I casually chose the brightest, deepest red silk gown. Of course, the flashier, the better. Tristan Ma smiled faintly. The more ostentatious, the easier for people to assume the mistress knew nothing of the world. Yes, I lightly adjusted the phoenix hairpin in my hand, letting them think me a mere hollow ornament. In the mirror, the young lady's eyes shone, teeth gleaming, gaze drifting with a hint of stubbornness, a pampered heiress through and through. Yet beneath that facade hid countless schemes. In the floral hall, incense drifted. As Julie-Antoine entered, he caught sight of me, resplendent in my attire. He paused briefly, then laughed. Mrs. Tuan dresses so, one might think you were entering the imperial hall. I pursed my lips, twirling my gown slightly. I hear the sisters in my husband's inner court are all beautiful. How could I face them without a little makeup? Julie-Antoine grasped my chin, dry lips brushing the corner of his mouth. Just two sisters. Worth all this worry? Oh, only two sisters? Then the others, the rest are just maidservants, not worthy of your notice? I widened my eyes and blushed, lowering my head. So, I had brought this upon myself. Julie-Antoine waved his hand. No matter, little lady, your beauty suits this gown perfectly. At that moment, Lydia Lu and Loi Di Nuang slowly stepped in. Seeing Julie-Antoine seated in the main position, the two clearly faltered. I, your servant, pay respects to Master Tuan and the mistress. Step up quickly, sisters. Your bodies are fragile, such ceremonies, if inconvenient, may be omitted. Her words were gentle but laced with barbs. I noticed Lydia's expression change, though she forced a smile. The maid offered tea. Once the sisters completed their bow, I casually removed the decorative hairpin, a small gift from the Vin Hung workshop. When it was Lydia's turn, she deliberately made things difficult, spilling a cup of tea onto my red gown. I ignored the wet fabric and quickly wiped it for her. An elder sister incapable? At her age, slow and clumsy, she must guard her health carefully. Then I turned to Julie-Antoine, sweetly saying, Husband, do not blame her, old hands tremble, it is only natural to misjudge. I used Lydia's excuse to silence her while intentionally letting jealousy slip in my tone. Outsiders might not understand, but Julie Antoine surely did. Over the years, Lydia had grown accustomed to indulgence. She hated anyone dressing more lavishly than herself. Today, she clearly tried to provoke me. Such moves might have seemed endearing when we were young, but now, with age, Julie Antoine saw only ignorance, and it happened during the delicate period of arranging a branch marriage. His expression darkened. If he felt too tense, he would reduce the sisters' control of the inner court, leaving me to handle it, sparing them the strain, even at the cost of their pride. I quickly waved my hand. That's not necessary. Julie Antoine stood, casting a cold glance at Lydia. Let it be decided so. He tossed down the handkerchief and turned to leave. The next day, I'll have the steward relay that from now on, the sisters must pay respects every 5 days. If done daily, their bodies would not endure. He tapped my nose lightly, scolding me playfully, little trickster. Once the rules were set for outsiders to see the Tuan household's seriousness and proper protocol, the matter of women paying respects was no longer worth undue attention. After he left, Tristan Ma brought the newly updated ledgers. I skimmed a few pages before setting them aside. They were trivial matters. The purchase of food and garments did not pass through my hands. Tristan Ma's eyes glimmered with amusement. Mistress not angry? She seemed to ask, why hurry? To catch a big fish, one must first let the line out long. In recent days, Julie Antoine had been away, reportedly hosting a guest from Truong, and night fell, the moon bright as water, and I alone arranged wine and snacks in the small flower garden, sending all servants away before pulling an old jade flute from my chest. The flute's clear notes echoed under the moonlight like a cold wind whistling through the heart. It was a piece of Tu Quan Po from years past at Inchuan Temple, a song Ethan Tuan had once held my hands to teach me to play. Why this piece? The notes choked midway. I turned my head, wine-tinted eyes blurred, and saw him standing in the moonlight, though I had not noticed him arrive. Emotion surged within me. I didn't ask why he had come, my mouth trembled with unspoken frustration. You think you can control me? I wavered to my feet. The flute slipped from my hands and fell to the ground. I leaned forward, almost toppling, but he caught me with one arm. The familiar scent of bamboo washed over me as I collapsed into his embrace. The cool fragrance brought memories of that snowy night long ago. On the mountains of Truong Lang, snow piled high, paths blocked, he had a fever and hallucinated. With no medicine, I could only warm him with heated wine. His face flushed, eyes dimmed, as he accidentally knocked over the wine jar. He cupped my neck and bent down to kiss me. In our mingled breaths, I heard his hoarse voice whisper, "Ni Nu. Will you marry me?" And yet, the next morning, he pretended it had been a dream. Now he held me tight, voice low, hoarse, laced with restraint. Why play this piece? Didn't I teach you? Does this mean you miss me too? I struggled to free myself. Ethan Tuan, have some self-respect. This is not the mountains of Truong Lang. Before I finished, he suddenly tightened his arms around me. I felt his chest heaving, his heartbeat drummed like war drums. Ni Nu. Tell me you love me. I turned my face, hoarse from wine and choked with emotion. You don't need me anymore. Why should I still remember you? Ethan Tuan suddenly gripped my wrist. His strength searing, impossible to resist. How could I not love him? Every ledger I kept, every calculation I made, he had taught me step by step. Even the calluses on my hands came from traveling north and south with him. Ni knew. Every part of me bears traces of him. How could I ever forget? Then, abruptly, he bent down and bit my lips, a punishing claim. I resisted. He pried my mouth open, taking me brazenly. I bit down hard on his tongue, my mouth filled with the metallic taste of blood, yet he seemed unfazed. Ni knew. Seeing me with that old man drove him insane with jealousy. The thought of me lying under the other man every night made him want to kill him. He held me so tight I could hardly breathe. Slowly, my resistance softened into words. The misty moonlight, the quiet camellia garden, bore witness to a night of madness. He deliberately left marks across my body, bruises, bites on my arms, hoarse and aggressive. You're mine. Let's see what happens when that old man returns. At dawn, he vanished silently like a shadow, leaving no trace. My whole body ached, almost unable to move. The empty pillow beside me was cold. I couldn't help but laugh bitterly. Men. All so indifferent. A month later, I was diagnosed with a miscarriage. Julien Tuan was overjoyed. Unable to contain himself, he immediately had the ancestral hall opened to offer incense and give thanks. Beaming with pride, he boasted that though old, he was still strong, certain to produce a noble son. That day he hurried back to the residence. I deliberately wore a thin, delicate gown to greet him. The still fresh bruises were painted over with makeup, forming blooming camellias across my smooth skin, mingling with the fragrance of the room. Julien Tuan could no longer restrain himself and spent the night with me. Under candlelight, his thin, dry hands stroked my still flat belly. The astrologers had predicted well. My botsie matched perfectly with his, truly a lucky star for the Tuan family. At the family banquet, Julien Tuan blushed with delight as he officially announced the news. Doi Di Nuang had no children, her smile forced. Lydia Lu's hands trembled so badly she dropped her chopsticks. I glimpsed Ethan Tuan, his fingers were pale, the cup in his hand nearly crushed. I pretended to be shy, lightly tugging Julien Tuan's sleeve. He immediately slammed the table and bellowed, "Rebellious boy. Mother, your sibling is on the way. Don't you congratulate her?" Ethan Tuan stared at my belly, each word hissing from between his teeth. "Congratulations, mother." I smiled shyly, leaning against Julien Tuan's chest. Together in joy, in moments I became the treasured jewel of the Tuan household. Julien Tuan held me like a gem, yet I did not grow proud. I even handed over small portions of inner court management to Doi Di Nuang. His two sons were obedient, rarely troubling me. Ethan Tuan tried several times to meet me, but lately had no reason. Julien Tuan rarely left the residence, so Ethan dared not enter the inner court at will. When the pregnancy reached 3 months, something was found in my food, Chu X. I did not react immediately, only instructing April Han to summon a physician to take my pulse in front of the servants. By the 5th month, after finishing a meal in the garden, the stone bench I sat on suddenly split in two. Fortunately, a maid caught me in time. After inspection, it was discovered that the stone bench had been secretly cut at its joints with a sharp object. I sternly ordered everyone to keep it quiet, merely claiming the old furniture had worn out. By the 7th month, the physician confirmed that this child would certainly be a strong boy. All my careful calculations, the bitter herbal medicines I had taken daily, none of it was wasted. On the day of labor, I deliberately timed my contractions to begin just as Julie Antoine had gone out. The first person to rush to my side was Lydia Lu. In the dead of night, she was adorned in dazzling makeup, her hair pinned with jade ornaments that dazzled the eyes. I was in agony, struggling for breath, when I heard her lean close and whisper, a trace of teasing in her voice, "If this child were not born successfully, the play would never reach its finale." This labor lasted an entire day and night. Julie Antoine hurried back to the residence, and upon hearing that I had delivered a precious son, he immediately ordered the treasury open to distribute rewards. The midwife cradled the newborn wrapped in swaddling cloths, feigning awe. She had delivered many children over the years, but never seen a premature child so robust. Looking at the rosy face, the child could have passed for full term. Hearing this, Lydia Lu stepped forward, playfully poking the baby's cheek. Indeed, Julie Antoine had gone out and likely taken some kind of vitality elixir. Not only had it enabled the wife to conceive, but also ensured the birth of a healthy, thriving boy. Her words sounded like praise, yet each phrase seemed to deepen Julie Antoine's suspicions, and his face darkened. He suddenly remembered, he had been away from the residence for 20 days, as Julie Antoine stared at the infant's face. The more he looked, the more alien it seemed to him. He abruptly raised his head, voice low and serious, "Summon Dr. Wang." The physician had long been waiting in the adjoining room. He stepped in slowly, took the child, examined him thoroughly, gently moving his tiny limbs, before finally speaking, "Master Tuan, the little master is truly robust. If you hadn't said he was premature, even I would have thought him full term." Lydia Lu immediately chimed in, voice full of astonishment, "A child born 10 days early yet so strong is rare indeed. Surely it is a blessing from heaven." Though flattery, Julie Antoine's face turned ashen. Moments later, he coldly ordered the doors of the residence closed. All unauthorized personnel were dismissed, and the infant was taken to the adjoining room. "Where do you intend to take the child?" I clutched April Han for support, staggering out of the birthing room, face pale as paper. Just delivered, still bleeding, every step felt like knives slicing through me. "Husband, the baby is still small and cannot withstand the cold. I must reach out to take back the swaddled infant from the nurse." Julie Antoine's expression darkened, wrinkles deepening with suspicion. Lydia Lu fanned herself leisurely, speaking calmly, "The physician has said this child is strong, unlike a premature infant. Why must the madam hurry so?" She cast a suggestive glance at Julie Antoine. "Unless there is some hidden matter you cannot speak of." I turned to Julie Antoine, eyes wide with disbelief. "Husband, do you doubt me?" He avoided my gaze, voice cold. "Right or wrong, the truth will be revealed." I lunged forward, gripping his sleeve tightly. Our newborn had just entered this world, yet was already subjected to this humiliation. If rumors spread, how could he ever stand proudly in the Tuan household? My voice choked, almost unable to form words. "Think carefully. Over the past year, in all my service by your side, have I ever acted even half beyond propriety?" Tears streamed down my cheeks. I lifted my gaze, letting each drop fall where he could see. All the ginseng broths I had painstakingly prepared, all the nights I had stayed up waiting for him to return, were they all in vain? If he truly doubted me, then it would be better to strangle us both with white silk now than let our newborn bear such shame from the very start. Seeing a flicker of uncertainty in Julie Antoine's eyes, Lydia Lu suddenly raised her voice. "Madam, there's no need to agitate. Are you perhaps feeling guilty?" I straightened, though my gown was stained a dark red. "Bring me the tea." Julie Antoine slammed the table, restraining her. Two maids immediately held me back, not allowing me to advance a single step. He paused, eyes cloudy and opaque with age, scanning between me and the child. Lydia Lu's words were not without reason. Truth or falsehood, it would be revealed. My whole body shook, tears flowing freely. All right. No more resistance. If there was truly nothing amiss, the rumors would naturally fade. I knew this faction could not be avoided. All I could do was lower my tone, entreating. Standing firm, Lu Yan spat out in quiet indignation. "If I am innocent, husband, you must make amends to me." In the adjoining room, the atmosphere weighed heavily. Julie Antoine sat in his chair, turning two jade pieces in his hand with a clicking sound. The twins in the swaddling cloth seemed to sense the tension, crying incessantly in their nurse's arms. A porcelain bowl of water was prepared. Julie Antoine stepped forward, pricked his finger with a needle, letting a drop of blood fall onto the water. I took the child into my arms. Seeing his rosy face, my heart ached as if bound by steel. Feeling the warmth of her mother, the twins gradually stopped crying. I gently took one tiny hand, lifting it into the palm of mine. The silver needle struck quickly and decisively. A heart-wrenching cry tore through the room, a drop of blood fell into the bowl of water, and silence enveloped the chamber, all eyes fixed on the crimson speck. Only Lydia Lu remained back, casually wiping the corner of her mouth as if certain of victory. The madam of the Ha estate would have to strain herself to resist. It was better to reveal the truth sooner than later. Before anyone could speak further, the steward's voice rang out in excitement. "It's settled. It's settled." The two drops of blood in the bowl slowly drifted together, finally merging into one. I burst into tears, clutching the wailing infant to my chest, my voice breaking into shards of grief and relief. "Husband, do you believe me now?" The wrinkles on Julie Antoine's face smoothed out, replaced by unrestrained joy. "Quickly, take the little master and care for him carefully," he ordered. Then he turned to the steward, instructing the new supply of blood-enriched bird's nest to be brought in for the madam's nourishment. I leaned against Julie Antoine's shoulder, lightly punching his chest with my hand. I had risked everything to give him a child, yet he had doubted me. I demanded the phoenix jade bracelet from Vin Hung Ward, and the pink gemstone jewelry from Tai Deep Pavilion. If he refused, I would no longer concern myself with him. Julie Antoine laughed heartily, patting my back reassuringly. "We'll get them all." I cast a glance at Lydia Lu. Her face darkened. Just moments ago she had been clever and poised, now nearly dropping her tea, arrogantly assuming herself clever before any victory was certain. I didn't even bother to lower a stone into the well or pay her any mind, letting Julie Antoine hold me, ascend the sedan chair with me, as a fresh wave of pain surged from below. I knew immediately that the contraction had torn my wound anew. It had taken 3 months of convalescence to regain even a fraction of my strength. Tristan Ma entered, carrying a bowl of medicine, eyes full of concern. "Mistress, why must you risk yourself so? If something had happened that day, wouldn't it have been 2 lives lost instead of 1? I pressed my hand against hers, took the bowl, and drank it down in one go. The bitterness spread quickly through my throat, yet beneath it lingered a faint sweetness. "Don't worry, Tristan. Fortune and wealth have always required risk. Once the decision is made to seize them, whatever the outcome, I will not regret it. I knew this all along. Ethan Tuan often sneaked into the inner residence, quietly observing Julian Tuan and me together. In the past, when I traveled with him disguised as a young boy, I never showed the slightest weakness in his presence. To him, I was always strong and indomitable. Now, seeing me soft-spoken and nestled against Julian Tuan, delicate and tender, like a small kitten pleading for attention, his eyes flared with jealousy, as if he wanted to burn everything down. Men were ridiculous. Desire only grew stronger when denied. Ethan Tuan, proud as always, believed I would eventually belong to him. Little did he know, the boy who once walked beside him to learn trade had now become Bai Yu Guang, untouchable. That distance alone had stripped him of reason, and I had calculated precisely based on that. On the third day after Julian Tuan left the residence, I deliberately sent the servants away and sat alone in the garden, drinking. One jar of wine emptied, I retrieved the long-preserved jade pendant. The melody of Si Jun Fu resonated mournfully in the dim twilight. I knew the proud fish would sooner or later swim headfirst into my net. As for Lydia Lu, when the pregnancy was unstable during the first trimester, she had done nothing. That had weighed heavily on my mind. If this child was born successfully, he would be the rightful heir. After Julian Tuan's eventual passing, with two legitimate heirs in the house, what claim could Lydia Lu's son possibly have? After many discussions with Tristan Ma, I arrived at a terrifying conclusion. Lydia Lu must know something, waiting until the day of my delivery to use the blood bond ritual to send me to my death. If that were true, the moment the child was born, would vow eternal defiance. Thus, I meticulously planned ahead. First, I had April Han discover Zoe Chow's pregnancy. Then I ensured someone would accidentally find the garden bench had been secretly sawed apart. Each attempt on my life had witnesses, yet I deliberately suppressed it, making no fuss. All this relied on a secret technique Tristan Ma revealed from the palace. In childhood, during a blood bond ritual, simply adding alum to water would make any blood merge. Alum, commonly used in incense making, was always at hand since I personally managed the incense. Tristan Ma and I tested repeatedly, confirming that human and dog blood could both fuse. To ensure certainty, 3 days before delivery, I instructed someone to add alum to the water in the Ha Pavilion well. Ethan Tuan, proud as always, believed I would eventually belong to him. Little did he know, the boy who once walked beside him to learn trade had now become Bai Yu Guang, untouchable. That distance alone had stripped him of reason, and I had calculated precisely based on that. On the third day after Julian Tuan left the residence, I deliberately sent the servants away and sat alone in the garden, drinking. One jar of wine emptied, I retrieved the long-preserved jade pendant. The melody of Si Jun Fu resonated mournfully in the dim twilight. I knew the proud fish would sooner or later swim headfirst into my net. As for Lydia Lu, when the pregnancy was unstable during the first trimester, she had done nothing. That had weighed heavily on my mind. If this child was born successfully, he would be the rightful heir. After Julian Tuan's eventual passing, with two legitimate heirs in the house, what claim could Lydia Lu's son possibly have? After many discussions with Tristan Ma, I arrived at a terrifying conclusion. Lydia Lu must know something, waiting until the day of my delivery to use the blood bond ritual to send me to my death. If that were true, the moment the child was born, would vow eternal defiance. Thus, I meticulously planned ahead. First, I had April Han discover Zoe Chow's pregnancy. Then I ensured someone would accidentally find the garden bench had been secretly sawed apart. Each attempt on my life had witnesses, yet I deliberately suppressed it, making no fuss. All this relied on a secret technique Tristan Ma revealed from the palace. In childhood, during a blood bond ritual, simply adding alum to water would make any blood merge. Alum, commonly used in incense making, was always at hand since I personally managed the incense. Tristan Ma and I tested repeatedly, confirming that human and dog blood could both fuse. To ensure certainty, 3 days before delivery, I instructed someone to add alum to the water in the Ha Pavilion well. It rained heavily, the water slightly sour, yet the servants assumed it was from rainwater and suspected nothing. Lydia Lu, confident of victory, played along with the midwife, exchanging words that had already sown doubt in Julie Antoine's mind. Little did she know, I had long prepared the trap, waiting only for her to step in. Once it was done, I needed no harsh words. Julie Antoine naturally took control for me. The succession of heirs was a matter of great consequence. I was certain that in such a situation, he would not sit idly by. Thus, even previous incidents, like Lydia Lu tampering with Zoe Chow's bench, would eventually reach Julie Antoine, piece by piece, on Kai Tuan's 100-day celebration. Right in front of the clan elders, Julie Antoine personally handed the steward's token to me. As for Lydia Lu, who had once commanded the inner residence with an iron hand, she had been completely absent for 3 months. Julie Antoine said she had fallen ill, and so she could only be sick. Even her son, Li Antoine, was severely reprimanded, repeatedly stripped of management over 3 major shops. In a secluded corner, I felt a burning gaze tracking me sharply, as if trying to see through every layer of my facade. I lifted my head and met Ethan Tuan's eyes, seeing him pause before stepping closer. Kai Tuan, wrapped in a red swaddle, with soft pink skin and an endearing expression, made him momentarily speechless. He swayed slightly, his voice hoarse and deep. "May I hold the child?" I smiled, gracefully declining. The young master is not yet married, unaccustomed to caring for infants. If he drops or hurts him, it would be disastrous. I held Kai Tuan close with Julie Antoine, standing in the grand hall, receiving all the flattery and praise without sparing another glance at Ethan Tuan. With Kai Tuan as the legitimate heir, my position in the Tuan household was secure as solid rock. By day, I had the inner residence to oversee, plus 100 children to manage. There was no energy left to serve Julie Antoine personally. But I had planned for this long ago. When night fell, a small, inconspicuous sedan chair was brought in through the side entrance. Julie Antoine froze as the curtains were drawn back. Out stepped a courtesan, golden-haired and blue-eyed, her porcelain skin flawless, her gaze carrying countless subtle provocations. I nudged Julie Antoine's elbow and pouted playfully. His eyes went wide. What was he to remember of his wife and child from now on? Recovering his composure, he held me tightly in his arms, the scent of wine mixed with faint rot wafted toward me. Yet I nestled gently in his embrace, unflinching. She was nothing but a toy, no match for my little daughter. I pretended to recount my ordeal in finding the courtesan. To locate her, I had to call in old acquaintances. The deposit alone cost 1,000 taels, and yet I had to spend another 2,000 to redeem her freedom. I held up 3 fingers, voice theatrical. All 3,000 taels, in total. Julie Antoine laughed heartily, immediately producing a stack of banknotes from his chest. He compensated me with 5,000 taels, and I received it with a bright smile, planting a loud kiss on his wrinkled face. my husband's blatant indulgence only made Julie Antoine trust me more, often praising my simple, straightforward nature. Whenever he said so, I feigned shyness, leaning lightly on his shoulder. My whole life depended on Julie Antoine. As long as he loved me, nothing else mattered. When Kai Tuan began to babble his first words, news arrived from Con Chau. The Lu family business was on the verge of collapse. In just 3 years, Lu Kai, once glorious, had reached rock bottom. All along, Zachary Zhao had been secretly sending monthly updates. Even with the Tuan family's covert backing, the Lu family's trade continued to falter. Over the past year, my father had repeatedly sent letters, initially casual inquiries, later urgent pleas, every stroke revealing the family's financial struggle, hoping I would intervene out of filial duty. The Lu family's fortune had been built entirely by me. He had done nothing but claim the title of a major patriarch. Believing business to be simple, he had neglected management, letting a gang of idle spendthrifts run the enterprise. Fake goods flooded the stores, accounts were chaotic, loyal clients abandoned them, and once large deals dissolved one after another. Lu Kai, once resplendent, now had nothing left but a name. I picked up a brush, sighing softly, recalling my father patting my shoulder years ago. A daughter must eventually marry. My ink fell onto the paper like a cold, sharp blade. Today, my daughter has become someone's wife. Raising a family is her duty. Matters outside the inner residence are truly beyond my power. It was only when Henry Lu incurred a massive debt he could not repay that my father, already troubled by financial shortfalls, refused to cover it. He intended to let the young man taste hardship for a few days. Yet Henry Lu failed to pay. Diana Truong's jewelry was pawned off by him. The gambler's enforcers struck him down. Just a few blows were enough to kill him. Initially, they had not intended to be so lethal, but Henry Lu, accustomed to a life of ease, was too weak to withstand even minimal punishment. My father was so shocked he suffered a stroke, collapsing on his bed, mouth twisted, unable to speak. What made it all the more ironic was that Henry Lu had spent his life committing wrongs with impunity. Neighbors and witnesses from nearby households stepped forward to testify. In the end, the magistrate pronounced just one sentence: he's dead, so cancel the debts. The accomplices only need to pay a fine of 20 lashes, and that's it. Henry Lu had lived a life of indulgence and debauchery, frequenting gambling dens and courtesan houses, long earning the contempt of all who knew him. When the news reached me, I wept uncontrollably beside Julie Antoine. The Lu family was already diminished, and now, with my father gone, I was left utterly alone. I did not miss the solemn, contemplative look in Julie Antoine's eyes. Moments later, he took my hand, his voice full of fervor. "Worry not, my lady." He immediately arranged a carriage for me to return to Con Chau to visit my family. After 3 years, I once again crossed the main gates of the Lu estate. The red paint of old had flaked away, leaving a gray, worn, and dilapidated facade. Inside, the bitter smell of medicine hit my nose. My father lay bedridden, and upon seeing me, his cloudy eyes briefly brightened. Drool streamed down his mouth, and he made several choking sounds. I stepped forward and bent close to his bed. "Father." That single word transported us both back to years past. Back then, he carried goods through the streets, and I clutched his coat, walking alongside him through the cobblestone lanes. On his shoulders, baskets shimmered in the golden sunlight, filled with spices and ingredients. Occasionally, he would pull out a sweet treat from his chest and give me the larger portion. He taught me to gather herbs and craft fragrances. The two of us hid in an abandoned brick kiln, calculating the ideal thickness to weave the perfect scent pouch. Those father and daughter moments now felt like memories from a previous life. I leaned close to his ear, whispering, "I still remember the first fragrance you taught me, Father." He had said that only agarwood with fine, delicate veins, tapped lightly near the ear to hear a pure tone, was the finest. But Father, you taught me so much, yet never gave me a chance to prove myself. I was the one who bore the hardships, yet others reaped the benefits. How could the world be fair? Look at him now, lying like this. And Diana Truong, the woman you once cherished as if holding an egg, did she ever take even a single cautious step? Tears flowed uncontrollably, a mix of grief and resentment cutting through my chest, leaving me breathless. Years ago, I had disguised myself as a boy and followed Ethan Tuan across the country, learning trade and commerce. Every coin I earned was secretly sent back to the Liu family. Dressed as a man for years, never daring even to touch cosmetics, yet when I returned, pushing open the door to the Liu new estate, I was met with a happy family scene: Father, Diana Truong and her child. She is like a bird you raised in a gilded cage. The money I worked so hard to earn over the years. You secretly used it to provide for her and her child. In the end, I was only weaving the wedding gown for another. The Liu family prospered, and my worth was erased. Father began to hint subtly, a daughter must eventually marry. At 18, she risks becoming an old maid, don't let it be delayed. How absurd. When I was needed, I was the pillar supporting the family fortune. When not, I became merely merchandise waiting to be married off. I could distinguish every type of herb blindfolded, knew how to evenly fill scent pouches, and invented a ledger system that doubled efficiency, with miscalculations so precise that even old masters marveled. Yet because I was born female, all that was deemed worthless. Father, you always said business required a sharp eye and clear mind, yet you failed to see that Diana Truong had fooled you so completely. That woman, frugal all her life, ultimately only replaced the old steward to raise her son. My father's eyes widened, his throat making choking sounds. Calmly, I wiped his mouth with a cloth, voice gentle as wind. I will find the finest doctor to heal you, Father. Unlike those ungrateful people, I will take care of you. I rose, ignoring the broken calls from behind. Father, watch closely. I will turn this dead game into a living one. In the 3 days I've stayed at the Liu estate, I have not had a moment of peaceful sleep. That night, the west wind blew cold and fierce. I rose to close the window, only to have a strong hand stop me. Ethan Tuan. Why are you here? Before I could speak, he leapt into the room. His gaze landed on my swollen, red eyes, brows furrowed tight. Uneasy, I turned away, struggling to suppress the emotions threatening to overwhelm me, voice quivering from the choke of unshed tears. Child, it's late. Return to your quarters. The room fell silent for a long moment. When I turned back, I did not know when he had positioned himself behind me. The warm hand that touched my shoulder suddenly jerked back, a low growl escaping. Step aside. Have you come here to mock me? As we struggled, the necklace I wore, with an old coin, snapped. The metallic chime of the coin hitting the stone floor rang clear and delicate in the still night. Ethan Tuan bent to retrieve it, gazing at the smoothed coin, voice hoarse. The coin I gave you that year. You've kept it all this time. Do not let your heart wander, I only took it back out of habit. Before his words ended, he pulled me into his embrace, the force startling me. If you were insignificant, why would someone of your standing in the Tuan household carry an old, worn coin? His heated breath brushed my ear, tone urgent, insistent, impossible to resist. Remember this, Julian Tuan may be old, and in his eyes, she is just a plaything, but I am different. I love her truly, wholeheartedly. A single I love you from me shattered every defense he had built around himself. Ethan Tuan, you wretched man. If only you had married me back then, Kai Tuan could have proudly called you father by now. His entire body trembled, a fierce light igniting in his eyes. All the doubts about Kai Tuan's parentage were finally confirmed. If you enjoyed the story, don't forget to like and subscribe to Love Stories with Lisa for more stories. Thank you so much.